Welcome to another edition of Seeking His Truth. I am Montreal Johnson, and I'm with Pastor Howard Bowden of Leesburg Church of Christ. And today's Q&A is, do all people who die goes to heaven?
Very good. Good morning, Jamal, by the way. It's been a few weeks again since we've been together, and certainly my apologies to the audience for that delay. But we're back. We're ready to go, and we're energized, and hopefully today will be a benefit to someone. I want to shift the question a little bit, because the question kind of is broad, and I want to answer it in two different sessions. So I'm going to rephrase the question to ask, what happens to us when we die? First of all, according to the Bible, and in that, answer the question, where do we go? If that's okay with you.
Yes.
I have to get your permission, so I won't sound disobedient. Well, and the reason I did that is because the Bible, first of all, does not give a single, simple, concrete answer to that question alone. But it does do two things. It talks about a place called heaven, and it talks about a place called hell. And some people believe that we go directly to either or when we die. And some people are of the belief that we don't, and there's some transitory space between life and death. So in order to clear up the question the right way, we've got to deal with that. So first of all, Genesis chapter 3 and verse number 19 says, "It was from dust that we came, or dust that we are, and that we're going back to the dust." When we get to Ecclesiastes 9 and verse number 5, it says, "For the living know that they will die, but the dead know nothing." So you got conversation about our beginning, then we have conversation about our middle or our living, and then we have conversation about us dying. In Luke chapter 16, Jesus talks a parable as Lazarus is being carried on into Abraham's bosom, in the parable of the rich man. And so not only do we have me being created from dust and me living and then me potentially dying, now I'm after death. And Jesus is telling this parable about Lazarus and the rich man, showing that even after death, I am not really dead, but there's a part of me that's still alive. And so we need to make sure that we understand that in the trichotomy of man, there are different parts of man, and each one of them do different things, okay? So, in the first view, do we go to heaven immediately? Wow, good question, right? So Luke 23 and verse 43, Jesus tells the thief on the cross, he says, "Now today I will see you in paradise." Now, some Bible thinkers, some Bible interpreters have determined that paradise in Luke 23 is heaven. Not sure if that's the case or not, because there is something between my death and heaven, and that's the story of Lazarus and the rich man in Luke chapter 16. Then Paul turns around in 2 Corinthians chapter 5 in verse number 8, and he says he would rather be away from the body and at home with the Lord. Interesting piece of theology. Then he says again in Philippians chapter 1 that he desires to depart to be with Christ. So what these passages suggest to us is that immediately after death, we are either in God's presence or we're not. And I hope we got that. So if people go to heaven right away, here's the question. What do we need judgment for? And so the misinterpretation, I think, of "today you will be with me in paradise," the misinterpretation is what leads to that thought. Now, here's the other interesting thing in Luke chapter 16. Luke chapter 16, Jesus tells the story, and he says that Lazarus goes to the bosom of Abraham. But he says something just before that. He says, the rich man lifted up his eyes in Hades Lazarus in paradise. So if we're interpreting paradise as heaven and not the grave, which it is, I think it's a misinterpretation. So all of us can't skip by the grave and go to heaven. We go to the grave and we wait for judgment. That's the first piece of this. Next week, we'll get the second piece. And because I want this to saturate in the minds of those that are listening. We have a mind, we have a body, we have a soul. The body goes back to the dust. The mind goes back to the God that gave it. And the soul will remain for an eternity. And that's the piece of Lazarus that Jesus is talking about in Luke chapter 16. And that's the piece of us that is going to live in eternity somewhere, whether it be on the side of the Hadean world where the rich man is, or whether it be on the side where Lazarus was. And so that's my bid for the week. God bless you. Hope you get something from that. Look forward to part 2 of this same question on next week.
All right. Thank y'all for watching. If you have any comments, please feel free to leave any comments, or if you have any questions, please feel free to leave those questions, or you can reach out to us through our website. That's lburgcoc.org. Again, that is lburgcoc.org. Thank you.